Well, we got the heads on here, and you can't have a junk 2-valve engine without fresh gold paint, so we'll get this all touched up. Life gives you lemons, you paint that shit gold. So here she is. She's basically brand new. Ooh, baby. Look at that. Yeah. That's gonna pop underneath that intake. Woo, baby. Fresh. Hell yeah. Okay, so I bought a parts engine for this car, and that gave me the valve springs and the cams, but the cams have some grooves in it. So we just set it up on my buddy's lathe, and we're gonna just polish these up real quick and make these look nice and pretty again. So I got some 500 grit. I don't know if it's gonna be enough. If not, we'll move back down. But we're gonna just turn this lathe on. Take this, run it through here, and you just pull tension on it and make sure that it's straight, and that will allow you to get your polish on the bearing surface, and it will be nice and concentric. That's not that bad, that's pretty quick. That looks pretty good compared to the other ones. We're not going to get that deep gouge out, but alright, so here's the difference. You can see we did the lobes and the bearings. The bearings look like brand new, and the lobes look pretty good. They're not perfect, but I don't want to take too much off of them. But yeah, this engine was sitting out for a little bit, and yeah, so we just take that 500 grit, turn it, and cleaned up in probably 30 minutes, maybe a little bit less. So super easy to do. Just emery cloth and a lathe. The chains are all on. I got all the tensioners in. It's pretty simple to align these. You just take the gold link. I did spin the engine around a little bit, so I can't show you exactly how it's done, but there's just a gold link on each side of the chain. You mark it up with the timing marks. You got one here, and you got one on the cam itself, and you line those dots up with the gold links, and you just make sure that they're on at the same time. That way you don't have one cam 180 out. So normally this dot right here will be all the way at the 6 o'clock position on the engine, and then each dot on the crank or on the camshafts will be a direct straight line from the crank to the cam, so the dot will be up here. So once we get the chains all on, big thing, especially with new cams and everything, making sure that the engine spins. So I already spun it around about 2 full rotations just to make sure that nothing hits. And as you can hear, it makes compression and it spins smooth. So even if you get a little bit of a bind, there's probably something wrong, and you should start looking to make sure everything is correct. So we're set up here to get the cams dialed in. We use this piece here to go in through cylinder 1 to find true top dead center. So we have our pointer set up, and what we do is we put this into the piston, go pretty much all the way down with this, and then run clockwise on the ratchet till we stop. We set it to 0, then we'll go counterclockwise till it stops. And so I set it to 0, and then I got 10. So then I divide that by 2, and I set the gauge to 5 degrees. And now I know that 0 right there is my perfect top dead center. Alright, so we have everything set up on our engine. You want to make sure that this gauge is on the valve spring, and pretty much as straight up and down as you can get. Grace is mad because it's snowing outside. And so we come over here and we'll go until we get the max lift on the cam and you want to make sure that it's set to 0. And when you're measuring it, you want to make sure that you're always going clockwise to get your measurements. So you'll come to your 50 on your dial, and you'll record that number now on this gauge. So right now we're at about 153, and then we'll back the crank back up past our 0 point, and then back past our 50 point enough that we can take all the slack off the chains and the valve train, and we'll come back at it clockwise to get to the 50 mark. And that way you're perfectly centered with the cam. So now our first measurement was 153. Our second measurement is 84 degrees. So you're working off your top dead center at 0. You add these two numbers together and you divide by 2. So I already did that on my calculator, and it's like 118.5. So that means that our cams are degreed at 118.5, and that's really high. So I gotta loosen these up and adjust it over to get the proper degrees. The cam card says 109. I'm gonna just make life easy. I'm gonna set them at 110, which will give it slightly more high horsepower, or top end horsepower, but it won't really make a difference with only 1 degree. So it'd probably be like 50 RPM change, and it's just easier to work with the numbers. So I'm gonna get that done. You gotta do it on both sides, but you don't have to reset your top dead center, because 5 top dead center is exactly the same as number 1 top dead center. Alright, so I misspoke in the other video. We're gonna use cylinder 1 and 6 because they're both at the same top dead center. And one thing that messed me up was on the driver's side head is you're going to use the furthest back cylinder because they're the same heads on each side. So on the passenger head, you use the forward valve. On the passenger head, you use the rearward valve here, because that's the intake valve. So everything's set. I set them over to 110 degrees, which is only 1 more degree than what they call for. And you still want to make sure once you get everything done. I got these all tightened back up, and I put red Loctite on it to make sure that they don't back out. That's a must on these because they're such tiny bolts. But you really want to make sure that this spins perfect, because I actually cut the valve reliefs in these pistons, but the cams say they require valve reliefs. A lot of people say that they don't for the stage 2s, but I just did it because I revved this thing to 7,000, and it already had piston to valve contact with the stock cams and springs. So I just did it as a safety. But I think that's why these were advanced so far, was to just make sure that those didn't contact. And now with the cam set perfectly, the engine spins just like it should. So do a couple rotations. And she's good. So now that I know everything spins perfect and nothing hits, I'm good to put the valve covers, timing cover, oil pan, basically get the engine all wrapped up, and then it's ready to go back in the motor, or back in the car. One thing you want to make sure that you do, because everything looks perfect, is you want to put the ring for the crank sensor on. And I've seen a lot of people forget to do this. So yeah, don't forget to put this on, and the thing will never start, and you'll have to pull the whole engine apart, and it's really annoying. So this just goes on. You make sure you find the thing that says front. It says front right there. And go over in here, slide right on over your keyway. And now we're finally ready to put the timing cover on. So don't forget that. It's a big deal. Got the engine painted gold. Hell yeah. Looks sick. Got my first China eBay header on. It actually went on pretty good. There was one thing. This actual flange that goes onto the head, I cut the center out because it was hitting over here on the dipstick, and you wouldn't be able to take this on and off without pulling the dipstick, which would be a giant pain in the ass. So I just cut that. Not a big deal. It'll probably actually help it seal better. So I did that on this one. I'll probably leave the other one as a single flange. But so far, that's all I had to modify on the headers. I'm not running an EGR on this, so I did weld a bung onto the EGR. So if I do end up selling these, that could be cut off and somebody could run the EGR again. So I didn't cut the whole tube off, but I did weld that on so I didn't have to deal with it anymore. Besides that, they look pretty good. So I'll get the other side on. Hopefully it goes on real easy. So one other thing I had to change. Don't mind the welds. I blew a hole in it that Pam Anderson would be impressed with. But I had to put another bung on this because for some reason they welded the O2 bung at the top, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to hit. So I just had one that was already broken off the other exhaust, and because I'm cheap, I didn't go buy one even though they're like $7, and I welded it on. So there it is, still learning how to TIG. Actually impressed that I was able to fix the hole because the hole was that big. Yeah, I messed that up real good. But engine's basically ready to go back in. That's the last harness that I got to get on. So I'll take this off the cart and I'll start putting the transmission on it. Alright, so I'm tasting the wrath of buying China headers and everything hits. But it's mainly this tube right now that we're seeing. So we're gonna cut it here roughly and cut it up here. Flip the header around so the bend comes in sooner. And if I have to, I can notch the K-member right here, and I can also dent this if I really have to. But the biggest thing is just getting this bend out where it's hitting on the K-member. So we're gonna bring this bend sooner, and it's gonna come out on top a little bit longer because there's no reason why this is tucked so close. It's actually kind of stupid. So here's what we had to do to the header. Dent the absolute shit out of it. We took an inch out of this side to put it on this side to move that turn back, and that's pretty much as far as you can go because then you wedge yourself between these two primaries, and yeah, it still hit everything. So we just dented the shit out of that, and it still rubs, but just barely. So once we're done with that, then I came over here and I cut this all the way down here, over here, and over there. And I cut like a ½ inch out right here, and I smashed this in with the sledgehammer because the entire side primary, I'm pretty sure is this guy, hit all the way down it. So instead of completely modifying the entire header, I just modified the K-member because this isn't a regular stainless and it's pretty impossible to weld. So instead of fighting with the header more, I just moved that, and that took me like, I don't know, 15 minutes to do, where this took like 8 hours just to do this because it was such a pain in the ass to weld up. So we're gonna just run it like that, and the engine is on solid motor mounts, so hopefully even if it rubs, it doesn't wear through right away. Alright, I got the engine on my little stand here, ready to go. I got my new 6-puck clutch in, and then I got the transmission. So I'm gonna basically just sit the transmission on the floor jack, bring it over here, and I'll be able to slide that right in by myself, hopefully. So that's the next step. Once that's all together and I plug in the transmission harness, I'll be able to lower the car down and I can actually get the engine in. Sick. Okay, I did my normal lower the car down on the K-member with a couple blocks, and it went right in about 30 minutes by myself. I don't think I broke anything yet. So the 4 bolts are in the K-member loose, so I'm gonna pick it up, make sure I can get all the bolts in, and tighten everything back up, make sure everything's square. So she's in. You don't have to worry about that header hitting, and I'm sure this one does too, you just can't see it. Oh yeah, it's in there, it's hitting. They're perfect. This is gonna be loud, and not the good loud, it's gonna just be a lot of vibration and ridiculousness. All right, as you can tell, there's a ton of shit not hooked up, but there might be just enough to run. So I'm gonna try to fire it up. The MAF and the cold air intake wouldn't fit because of PCV valve, so I gotta get one that's shorter because of the new valve covers. And there's just a bunch of stupid stuff that doesn't fit. But I need a win today, so let's see if we can get a win. Well, it turns over, but the theft light is flashing like crazy and it's making crazy noises. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on. At least I got one lead. This is the CCRM right here. And that's what's buzzing. Well, we have a bit of a predicament. This is my CCRM out of the car. It doesn't need to be watertight. And it's supposed to be a Maraca. Anyway. So, it's supposed to have a code on the front, and obviously there's nothing but rust on it, so that's junk. And I had this one on the shelf that I thought was supposed to be for this, but it's a 99 one, and I think it's different from 01 to 04. So I turn the key on, and it just clicks and does funky stuff. Well, I was supposed to take a video of me starting the car and it actually running, but this is all it was. This plug right here is kind of a pain in the ass to plug in, and it wasn't plugged in all the way. So, plug that in all the way and everything's perfect. Even the Maraca CCRM works. So, I filled it up with water, only made a little bit of a mess, and it runs good. So now it's just time to tie everything up, you know, put the zip ties on, and she'll be good to go. And here's the new X-pipe. It's the old crappy X-pipe. I think it was a BBK that I got for 50 bucks, and I got some like tires, and I got the lip and stuff, so basically free. And so I decided that I was gonna just make this work because it was the right size. And I just bought some collectors. The collectors were like 10 bucks a piece. And cut it, welded it, and yeah, there she is. Now I'm gonna just bolt it up and get this thing. I gotta put the wheels on, get this thing off the lift, and I can put the steering shaft back in it, and I gotta fill the transmission up with fluid. And should be able to do a burnout. Damn, this thing is so loud. I really need the idle to come down because I want to hear the cam. You can hear it a little bit. Oh, there it goes. Yes! Oh my God, I love it. Back. So, yeah, the video quality is probably terrible, but it's so damn loud, but it sounds awesome. It sounds so much better. It's got some noise. The clutch chattered a little bit. I hope that that goes away. But yeah, it seems to drive pretty good. I don't know how much power it's got. Well, it'll spin fourth in the rain, which doesn't say much, but that was not even trying, so it definitely got more than what it had before. do you think? I think she likes it. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. The car is going to be ready to go on the dyno here soon, so make sure you subscribe and hit the little bell so you get alerted when I make the next video, because it's going on the dyno and I want you guys to see it.